Welcome to the Explainer. So think about the oldest fairy tales you were told as a kid. What if, and just go with me here, what if they weren't actually fiction, but literal eyewitness accounts? Today, we're launching into a thrilling forensic investigation. For centuries, we've just brushed off ancient legends as, mere myths. But what happens when modern science, stuff like geology, X-rays, and deep-sea drilling, actually starts validating those ancient texts? We're going to treat ancient history like an active crime scene, comparing these incredible legends with hard, measurable data to unearth some absolutely astonishing truths.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our global itinerary. We're going to start with the chilling mysteries of a green Antarctica, then look at water weathering on the Egyptian Sphinx, investigate the geological crime scene of Sodom, see how researchers are literally X-raying ancient Roman scrolls, and finally, explore the blurry line between science and the supernatural. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Green Antarctica and Polynesian Myths.
For centuries, mainstream geology basically held that humans never settled the frigid, barren, 5 million square mile ice sheet of Antarctica. It just made sense, right? But Polynesian oral traditions, which stretch all the way back to perhaps 4000 BC, tell a totally different story. Their legends describe these culture heroes navigating south to a land of white rocks jetting out of the water. I mean, clearly, they're describing icebergs, along with seals and penguins. To actually test this myth, a 2017 expedition took a highly specialized German seafloor drill rig to pull up core samples from the deep Antarctic seafloor. And guys, what they found completely changes the game. They discovered more than 60 different taxa of plants. And not just any plants, the exact kind you would normally find in a rainforest.
The researchers found proxy data indicating a temperature regime that was, get this, similar to modern-day northern Italy. Imagine packing your bags for a frozen wasteland and realizing, oh wait, I should have brought a light jacket for a Mediterranean vacation. It's crazy. This empirical discovery is just awe-inspiring because it completely rewrites the accepted geological timeline of what we thought was a permanently frozen continent. It absolutely forces us to ask, was the coldest place on Earth actually warm enough to be inhabited by ancient humans, exactly like those Polynesian myths suggest? Section 2. Water weathering the Great Sphinx. From the ice of the Deep South, let's transition to the bone-dry sands of the Giza Plateau in Egypt. The Great Sphinx is an absolute marvel of ancient engineering, but for a massive chunk of its history, this immense 240-foot-long structure was literally buried up to its neck in sand. It wasn't even fully unearthed until the 1920s. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how its origins are obscured by a highly conflicting timeline. Conventional academic dating says, okay, the Sphinx was built around 2550 BC by King Khafre. But ancient Egyptian records actually push back on this. There's this inventory stele, an inscription from about 4,600 years ago, stating that the pharaoh Khufu, who actually came before Khafre, repaired the Sphinx. That means it was already an ancient, weathered ruin in their time. And when we dig into the geological data, it pushes the date back way further, like roughly 10,000 BC. The forensic logic here is literally hidden in the stone. While the rest of the monuments on the dry Giza Plateau show classic wind and sand erosion, which you'd expect, the body of the Sphinx and its enclosure walls tell a very different story. They show deep water weathering, and that is specifically caused by heavy, sustained rainfall precipitation. Now, the Sahara has been a bone-dry desert for thousands of years, so for the Sphinx to bear this very specific type of water weathering, it logically must be a pre-dynastic ruin dating all the way back to the end of the last ice age, back when the region actually had a much more temperate, rainy climate. It's like a geological smoking gun. Section 3. Sodom's geological crime scene. So, just as we use deep-sea sediment core drilling to test the myths of Antarctica, we can use modern archaeology and soil analysis to investigate the lower Jordan River Valley. Right here, about 8 miles north of the Dead Sea, lies a mile-long ridge burying a 4,000-year-old ruined city known as Tel el-Hammam. It was a massive settlement, and it perfectly matches the biblical geography of Sodom. Now, we all know the biblical account of divine wrath, right? Fire and sulfur raining down from the heavens. But looking at this purely objectively, as a geological crime scene, could the legendary destruction of this city actually be the result of a massive, measurable natural event? Can modern science find physical proxies for fire and brimstone at this specific dig site? Let's directly cross-examine the ancient text with the actual archaeological findings. The book of Genesis describes fire, burning stone falling from the heavens, and famously, Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt. Well, Incredibly, at the el-Hammam site, archaeologists have excavated the middle layer of the city and found physical evidence of extreme thermal damage. We're talking partially melted pottery fragments. Furthermore, they found that the dirt and the pottery in this specific destruction layer are completely coated with thick Dead Sea salt crystals. It's wild. The physical evidence literally maps right onto the legendary narrative.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact scientific mechanisms at play here, which are just stunning. When you analyze the proxies on this evidence board, the thermal damage through melted building materials, these tiny melted sand microspheres, and a highly unusual concentration of rare earth elements, they all point to one thing. You see, these elements are really common in asteroids, but not naturally on Earth. Combined, this hard data indicates that an incoming meteor fragment exploded in a massive airburst right over the north end of the Dead Sea. This colossal explosion would have pushed a tidal wave of superheated dirt, water, and salt over the landscape, basically flash frying the city exactly as those ancient stories described.
Section 4. X-raying ancient Roman scrolls. Okay, let's shift our focus from macrogeology to microtechnology. Picture this. It's 79 AD, a peaceful late summer day in Italy. Suddenly, Mount Vesuvius erupts, sending a scorching pyroclastic flow, this massive cloud of ash and debris that is hundreds of degrees hot, rushing right down over Pompeii. But miraculously, instead of destroying absolutely everything, the intense heat flash-fried and preserved organic matter beneath the ash. Hidden beneath all that volcanic debris was a luxury Roman estate known as the Villa dei Papyri. It was actually discovered by chance by well diggers in 1750, and it contained an absolute treasure, a library of over 1,800 carbonized papyrus scrolls. Now, initially, people mistook them for just blackened logs. These super brittle scrolls were completely unreadable, which prompted a frustrating century-long moratorium on even touching them. I mean, they were terrified of turning the only surviving library from antiquity into dust. But today, computer science is literally reading the unreadable. It's amazing. Through an astonishing method called virtual unwrapping, developed over at the University of Kentucky, scientists are safely peering inside. Here's how it works. First, they use a highly sophisticated X-ray machine to scan the physical rolled-up scroll, capturing a full 360-degree cross-section. Second, they use custom software to trace those delicate wraps all the way through the damaged layers to build a precise 3D model. And finally, they digitally flatten that model out. This allows researchers to actually sit there and read the ancient Greek and Roman text hidden inside without ever physically opening it. The historical stakes of this technology are absolutely massive. So far, the fully unwrapped scrolls have revealed texts dating from the 3rd to the 1st century BC. That includes a quote from the early Greek philosopher Democritus, actually postulating that materials are made of atoms way back then. But even more thrilling is the timeline itself. You see, the villa was entombed just 40 to 50 years after the life of Jesus, right when the early apostles were actively traveling the Mediterranean. Historians believe there's a really tantalizing possibility that this library could contain copies of original letters from the Apostle Paul. If found, it would be the earliest Christian material ever discovered. Just imagine reading the foundational texts of Western history fresh and unedited, straight from the source. It's a real game changer. Let's move to Wada and see how this builds in Section 5, Science versus the Supernatural. This brings us from high-tech Roman forensics to a suburban basement in Cincinnati, Ohio. Here, Greg and Dana Newkirk caretake a massive collection of bizarre, allegedly cursed artifacts sent to them from all over the world. As investigators of history and science, we kind of have to ask, what happens when empirical science reaches its limits? Because, remarkably, people who visit their museum, even without knowing the history of the objects they're looking at, often experience intense, unexplainable physiological reactions. We're talking about severe heart palpitations, extreme anxiety, dry heaving, and people literally almost fainting just by being in proximity to these items. Take one specific, highly harrowing case file from their collection, an unsettling wooden effigy known as the Crone. It was found by hikers in a cave in the Catskill Mountains, tightly bound with a noose and embedded with nails. Almost immediately, the finders started experiencing frightening phenomena, stuff like strange animal behavior outside and mysterious wet footprints inside their home. When the item was finally sent to the Newkirks, its effects seemed to escalate. The breaking point actually came when a Canadian visitor begged to see the Crone. Almost immediately upon being near it, his eyes rolled back and he suffered a violent seizure requiring paramedics. The object was so potent that even these highly experienced caretakers refused to keep it in their museum. To neutralize the object, the Newkirks decided to take it back to the exact mountain in the Catskills where it was found to perform a cleansing ritual. They set up an energetic circle to contain the space. This is amidst the terrifying sounds of unseeable footsteps crunching in the woods, by the way. They began pulling the embedded nails out of the wood with the specific intention of pulling the curse out of the object. As the final nail was removed, they reported feeling a literal electric pop in the air, which was followed instantly by every coyote on the mountain erupting into howling. Once that was completed, the Crone was suddenly just a lifeless block of wood again. So the crucial point is this. From deep-sea core samples validating Polynesian myths of a green Antarctica to soil analysis proving the fiery destruction of Sodom, yesterday's magic is consistently becoming today's measurable science. It leaves us with one incredibly provocative thought. As forensic technology pushes the boundaries of the known world, what currently unexplainable mysteries, perhaps even the visceral physical energy of a cursed object, are just waiting to become the accepted science of tomorrow? Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll see you in the next explainer.